Good morning. In this week's parasha of Matot, we start with Moshe conveying the command of Hashem to the Jewish people in a somewhat unusual way. Moshe spoke to the leaders of the tribes of the Jewish people, saying, Zeh hadavar asher tziva Adonai. This is the matter that Hashem has commanded. And this expression, Zeh hadavar, this is the matter, is something that's only mentioned twice in the Torah and not mentioned at all by the rest of the prophets. Rashi observes this quoting from the Midrash, and he says that the other Nevi'im gave a prophecy using the word ko amar Hashem. So says Hashem. This is what Hashem declares. Whereas Moshe used the word zeh. This exactly, precisely. There is a greater precision and emphasis on this being exactly what is being transmitted in the word zeh than in the word ko, which means something like this. So the question is, of course, what is the difference between Moshe and the other prophets? Moshe sometimes uses the expression ko, but he also uses the expression zeh, whereas the other prophets only use the expression ko. So the approach of the Ra'im, one of the great commentaries on Rashi, and this is followed by Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, is, as I've said, that ko is a more general, more interpretive transmission of the word of Hashem, whereas zeh is precisely exactly. The difference would be analogous to me quoting somebody or me saying, let me tell you what I understood them to be saying. That's already my interpretation. And Rabbi Kamenetsky adds, we are used to thinking that if somebody has the truth, that there is one truth. Truth is monolithic. This is very much the Aristotelian Platonic philosophy, that there is one truth and there are many paths to falsehood. But truth is only the one. And Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky says, no, it's not true at all. And he gives an example that he says, let's take somebody who is a wealthy man, right? Let's say he's got 5 million rand in the bank. And you ask an unbelievably wealthy person, you ask a billionaire, right? You say, tell me, is this guy wealthy? So he's going to say, yeah, he has some money. Then you would ask a very, very poor person who's massively in debt, who has basically no assets or property, and you say to them, this guy with the 5 million rand, is he wealthy? I'll say, absolutely, he's incredibly wealthy. Which one of them is telling the truth and which one of them is lying? Well, they're both telling the truth. They're telling a different truth because they are coming from a different perspective and their perception is different. This is not something where the objective labels can be applied. And so, that, says Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky, is the same thing. Each prophet sees Hashem through his own perceptive filters, through his own interpretation of reality, the same as every one of us do that. Moshe, however, was unique. Moshe had this incredible greatness that he was a clear lens, that he was able to transmit exactly what Hashem wanted, see exactly what he got, without any of his own personal emphasis or bias ever getting in the way or creeping into it. That's the basic idea that Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky puts down. And so he says that the other prophets say ko because they are always involved. Moshe says zeh because he's able to see it and transmit it exactly. The analogy I think of is with a diamond. We always talk about a diamond, so you'll have a diamond that has a little bit of color in it. So sometimes that's a valuable thing, but sometimes it's not. And the diamond has a little bit of color. The light that you shine into it is going to come out influenced by that color. If it has a little bit of a flaw, the light will come out bent through that flaw. If you have a perfect diamond, right, so then the light's going to go through completely, completely flawlessly and clearly. That's the idea of Moshe. Moshe was this perfect diamond. He was so completely aligned with Hashem that he was this straight channel for the words of Hashem. Now, the Maharal of Prague quotes this explanation, even though Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky only passed away 25 years ago, and the Maharal was 400 or 500 years ago. As I said, this explanation has its antecedents in the Ra'im, which he was in the 1400s. So the Maharal quotes this explanation, and he says, no, it's very nice, but it actually doesn't work. He doesn't like it. Because, he says, if the zeh is a product of Moshe's superior perception and prophecy, then Moshe should never use the word ko. He should only use the word zeh. Because after all, ko means, this is what I understood Hashem to be saying. And you're telling me that every time Moshe hears from Hashem, he's telling us exactly what Hashem's saying. So why would Moshe ever use the word ko? So the Maharal says, actually there's something different going on. It's not just relating to the clarity of your perception of Hashem, it's relating to the depth of the perception of what kind of prophecy is it. He says you sometimes have a prophecy of the external. This is what's going to happen. This is what Hashem's doing. This is what I'm seeing. This is what Hashem's telling. Right? What's happening in the world? That's the external level. He says you have a deeper, higher, greater level, which is the Torah. What's happening in the meta world? What's happening behind the world? What's happening in the spiritual world? He says that was something that Moshe was able to see. That's why Moshe teaches us the mitzvot. Torah tziva lanu Moshe. The mitzvot are not split over 10, 20 different prophets. The mitzvot are given directly to Moshe. Moshe is the one who is able to see deeply enough into Hashem's plans, world, insight, mind, that he's able to see what the mitzvot are that Hashem wants. All of the other prophets, based on their own limitations, were only able to see the outcomes, so what's happening in the world. But they weren't able to see that deeper level of the input, of the dynamics of the Torah, of what's actually happening behind that. And it's interesting because this actually ties in with what we spoke about 2 weeks ago with Balak. That why was in Parshat Balak that Bilam was able to see a greatness in the Jewish people that our forefathers wasn't. It's the Maharal who gave the explanation there as well. That he says that the forefathers were only able to see the external, the outward consequences because they were a part of the Jewish people. Whereas Bilam was able to see inside of the Jewish people coming from the external perspective, and the inside was just such goodness. It's the same kind of thing here. Hashem has the external, which is the world and which is what happens. But then there's what drives the world, what goes on behind the world. We say that the Torah itself is the world itself is a product of the Torah. And that a Kudsha Brichu is takel bo'oraito vara alma. The Holy One, blessed be, he looked into the Torah and from that he created the world. So most of the time we're only able to see the world. People with special privileged view can see what Hashem's doing in the world, what Hashem's going to do in the world. That's the prophets. But Moshe could even see what was happening in the Torah, what was happening behind the world, before the world, going on in those spiritual mechanics behind it. So again, we have these two levels of prophecy, the level of Ko and the level of Zeh. Moshe had Ko and Zeh. Other prophets only had Ko. The Re'aim and Rabbi Yaakov Kamenetsky said Ko is your own perceptual filter being applied to the word of Hashem, and Zeh is the exact word of Hashem. The Maharal says that Ko is the level of prophecy of what Hashem is doing, but Zeh is the level of prophecy of the Torah, which is above and beyond that. Shabbat Shalom.